and we appreciate you joining us, and we're looking forward to sharing with you a little bit about the organizational structure that we have in cooperative extension, and thinking about this as you come on board. Many of you have been here for different periods of time, and so some may seem redundant, and for others it might be new information. But as always, we want to be able to answer your questions and your comments. I'm Michelle Rodgers, and Director of Cooperative Extension, and joining with me is
Maria Pippidis, and I am the County Director in Newcastle County and a Family and Consumer Science Educator.
So thanks, Maria, for taking time to develop this with me and to work together as we share some information. So we're going to jump right into it and talk a little bit about them. Let me just show you the overview of all the things we're going to cover today, which is on the next slide, Maria. We want to talk about the mission for the organization, some of our organizational charts, the plan of work, program evaluation, advisory committees, promotion process, mentors, and the support that you have as a new staff. So lots of topics to cover here. I'll start with the mission and mandate. We are very proud and a part of, and want to make sure everyone that's new staff is aware that we're a part of the land grant tradition. And this was established at the time of the Civil War federally, when the country was at war with each other, but one of the things they decided to do was invest in education and recognize the value of education. And so the land grant colleges were started with land that was donated in each state, designated for the purpose of higher education. And some states, like Delaware, already had a university, and so it was a matter of designating this as the land grant university. So University of Delaware was among many others, and we currently have over 70 some land grant universities, at least one in each state, more so in some other states. And the important thing to know about our mission was it was to bring the university to the people. So the land grant was established so that the university at that time, which was just largely higher, available to those who had higher incomes, was to bring this to everyone. And the common person is the language they use, that everybody would have access to the university. So that's the beginning of the university and the land grant tradition. And not long after that became the establishment of cooperative extension through the Smith-Lever Act, which is a federal legislation that established cooperative extension to bring the university to the people in the communities through county agents, as they were called at that time, and home economists, as they were called at that time, and to bring that to the home and farms of the communities. And we've shared that tradition over 150 years. So that's a part of our background, and our mandate is really to be the front door of the university and to bring the research and the teaching of the university to the people in the communities. That's very much a part of our history and who we are, and what you are doing on the job is being the university to the people in your community. We're also a partner organization. We are funded by multiple partners. We're funded by the federal government through the channel of the United States Department of Agriculture. We're also funded in the state, and it's a requirement of each state to fund one-to-one dollar match for what the federal gives us. And the federal amount that we receive is based on a formula that's not easy to determine or calculate, but it includes number of farms and rural areas in the state. So we have our federal funding that comes through USDA, our state funding, which comes to the land grant institutions by way of through cooperative extension. And you'll see I have a number of different years there. Smith-Lever established funding for 1862 institutions, and that's what University of Delaware is. 1890 was historically Black institutions, and there was separate funding that happened in 1890 for those institutions, and then very much more recently in that history, 1994, which were tribal communities funding for those as well. So land grant institutions, and in our state, University of Delaware is the 1862, and Delaware State is the 1890. And then local county government also provides support in each of our counties that is in support of the work that happens locally. So we are then, as you slip to the next slide here, you can see that we are organized at the university level as part of the College of Agriculture. Now, this is true for University of Delaware, and it's true for many cooperative extension services, but not all of them. Some of them are a separate entity altogether. Some of them are spread across several colleges. But for us here at UD, cooperative extension is all based in the College of Agriculture. And as such, we are then situated and responsive to the dean of the college, who is Mark Rieger. This is a pretty detailed organizational chart of the College of Ag and Natural Resources, but the main thing that I want to call your attention to is that the dean is at the center of the chart here, and then across the top, the next level of boxes are the units that are in the college. So you'll see to the left my name as an Associate Dean and Director of Cooperative Extension. Next you'll see that we have Mark Isaacs, and that is for the Carville Research and Education Center. And next you'll see Eric Womack, who is the Dean of Associate Dean of Research and the Deputy Dean in the college. And then if you move to the next, to the right, you'll see four boxes, and they couldn't all fit crosswise here, but they are the chairs of each of the departments. And so we have 4 departments: Animal and Food Science, Applied Economics and Statistics, Entomology and Wildlife Ecology, and Plant and Soil Sciences. So they are the 4 academic colleges, 4 academic departments in our college. So they're the main structure of our College of Ag, and from which cooperative extension works primarily within those. And under this dean, currently, cooperative extension, Carville, and the 4 academic units are all the funded units that we plan strategic hiring around and work from. So that's the way the budgeting is around those primary units, or we're considered the primary units for the college. So that gives you an overview of the college. There's lots of other things on there for the college view that we can talk about if you have questions about or other times. But let me next show you then how cooperative extension is organized. So you see at the top, Dean Rieger, although he doesn't have an official appointment in extension, he is responsible for the college, and so I report to the dean of the college. In some institutions, the dean is also the director of extension. In our state, that's not the case, that I wear that hat and serve as that role as both an associate dean and then director. And then how our organizational chart goes for cooperative extension is that we're pretty flat organization, as you can see from this. We do have a leadership team, which is made up of our county directors. We have 3 county directors, and our program leaders. And we have primarily 3 major program areas: agriculture, family consumer science, and 4-H. So representatives of those program leaders, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, make up what's our leadership team. And then we have our county extension personnel. And our county extension personnel either report to one of those persons in our leadership team. And underneath that are the many volunteers that we have in our organization, and they work with our staff. We have over 3,000 volunteers who are a part of our cooperative extension program in Delaware, which is an amazing number of volunteers that really augment our cooperative extension program. On the left-hand side, you'll see that the college departments, the 4 departments that I just mentioned, are there, and they report to the dean as well. And underneath that, you'll see extension faculty. So we have county extension personnel, which generally use the title of agent, and then we have extension faculty, and they have either 100% or some percentage of their time in extension. They might also teach. They might also have a research appointment. Generally not 3, just 2 of those, either extension and teaching or extension and research. And those faculty who have an extension appointment are in the departments and report to that department head. Fortunately, with the department heads we now have and with this dean, as Director of Extension, I also have input on those faculty and the work that they do, and we work in an integrated approach and collaboratively across the board in terms of our direction. So college departments have some responsibility for extension, just like they also do for teaching and research. On the next slide, you can see another way you might think about us being organized. We do have geographic designations and offices in each of the counties, as do most other land-grant institutions across the country. So we have over 3,000 cooperative extension offices across the United States of America in our counties that we have. And you can see that in our state, we have some of our faculty who are located in Townsend Hall and on campus in Newark, and some of our faculty that are based in Georgetown at the Carville Research and Education Center. And so we have faculty, extension faculty, working from those locations. And then we have our county personnel that are in each of our county offices. And there's a mixture of different types of personnel that are in each county office. Every office does include at least one family and consumer science educator, a horticulture educator, an ag educator, and 4-H youth development educators, and our expanded food and nutrition education program assistants. Then in the offices, there will be additional folks, many of whom are funded as well through grants, and our support staff who are funded on our base budgets. So we have an office of unique individuals and personalities, but they represent our total program in each of the county offices. And while we're in county offices, everyone in this size state is really has the opportunity to work across the state and sharing their expertise in teams. And so on the next slide, you'll see the many teams that we have. And another way we're organized is by these teams. You can see here that we have the ag team, and because we have over 20 FTEs or full-time equivalents in the area of ag and natural resources, that team really works in two primary areas. The production ag side and the ornamental hort side. They meet together as a group, and then they have some sub-meetings in their specific areas. So you'll see Carrie Murphy there on the left, and Carrie is the program leader, particularly for leadership in the ornamental hort team. And she works collaboratively with Emily Ernest on her right, who provides leadership for the production ag. And together they provide program leadership for the ag and natural resource team. In the middle, you'll see Doug Kraus, and Doug has many years of experience in extension and all in the area of youth development. And he serves as our program leader in youth development. He has a state office that is located in the farmhouse in Newark, and the conference room there, some of our staff meet. And Doug also travels the state and may be seen in any of the county offices on any given day. And then on the right, our Family Consumer Sciences team, also a growing team with a number of grants. And they are, leadership is provided by Kathleen Splain on the left and Gina Christ. Kathleen's in the Kent office and Gina's in Townsend Hall. So we have these individuals who serve in a leadership capacity, providing another way that we organize ourselves around our program teams. So our staff are in locations, and they also are in part of program teams. And you might find yourself in staff meetings that are organized by a county and a program team meeting anywhere in the state talking about specific content. So what is the content the cooperative extension does, and how do we even get there to determine what that is? Well, we use a term that many of you have heard at this point called plan of work. And every state has a plan of work. It's required by our federal funding partner that we have a plan of work. But it's also a really great idea that we have a plan that guides how we staff, and it guides what programs we do. I like to say it puts some fence posts around what is cooperative extension. We write a new plan. We're required to write a new plan or adjust our plan every 5 years from our federal partner. And it's built on and required that it's built on needs assessment of those who do the work with us. So it's built on the input we have from people in the communities from which we serve, which is really all across the state. So needs assessment is important. We do a major one a couple years ago to help write our current 5-year plan. And then in each of the teams and program teams and individual agents conduct needs assessment around what they might want to do. We're interviewing for a position today, and that individual that's coming on board in a position would be expected to have some at least informal conversations with those in their program area to see what the needs are, and maybe even do something more formal like focus groups. Then we have, building on all of this, we have what is the state plan of work. And we submit it to our federal partner in April of each year, and they approve what that plan of work is, what we're doing. And at that same time, we also submit a report of what we accomplished in the previous plan. So this plan is a part of our Federal Accountability Act, which requires us to say, here's what we're planning to do, here's the number of people we have working in each of these areas, and this is what we're accomplishing in each. So that's the plan of work. It's used across extension all across the country, and it's a major point of what we're doing together. On the next slide, you can see something that is a graph that defines what our current plan of work is. And I just want to describe how we have put this together. For our federal partner, the plan of work is what we are doing in extension and what we do in research. It's one plan, and it gets submitted together and gets reported on together. So on the left-hand side, the left light blue column, you can see what the Cooperative Extension College of Ag and Natural Resources, what we have identified as our research strengths. And we are working on those areas, and there are teams around those 5 research areas. In the middle, you'll see our Delaware Cooperative Extension Plan of Work for the next 5 years. And you can see that above that red line, for example, we have a sustainable production systems for ag and urban landscapes. And that ties into the research areas to the left, which are genetics and genomics and sustainable food systems. So we may have genetic and genomic research going on, and we do. We have faculty who are appointed to do that work, and a large amount of that is a strength area for us, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're doing that in cooperative extension. So you see the differences there, but how we are pulling that all together. So then on the right-hand side, NIFA refers to the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and that is how we're organized under USDA. So the cooperative extension section of USDA is often referred to as NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And under this area, we combine our strengths in research and extension, and we call this our Sustainable Production Systems for Ag and Urban Landscapes, just like the extension title with that. And so that's a major area. If you go on down through the chart, you'll see in the extension, the middle section, we work in nutrition and wellness and food safety. And that corresponds with our work in the One Health Initiative and Plants and Humans in the research side. And we report this all under to our federal partner as nutrition and wellness. The third major area of our plan of work has really 3 subcategories in it that we work in. We call it volunteer and leadership development. As I mentioned, we have all these volunteers. We also participate in developing leadership in both youth and adults. We have a major focus on STEM education in our youth programming. And we're also focused on our programs on economic development as it supports our state economic development. So you see that on the right-hand side, we talk about this as summarize this as personal and economic development programs that we have. And then the fourth area for cooperative extension is environmental stewardship and changing climate. And that is what we call it in the plan of work, and it correlates to the research we're doing in climate change mitigation and adaptation. So I share this so you can see that we align ourselves. We are part of the College of Ag, part of the structure of Ag. We are part of the organizational structure of Ag, but programmatically, we're also a part of the college, and we align our work, our major research strength areas and our extension strength areas support each other, and thus our staffing to work in these areas are also supported across the college. I want to just pause for a moment and see if anyone has any questions about this information or anything further that I can explain before we go any further. Are there any questions? Well, please feel free to use the chat area at any point in time, or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions as needed, because we're happy to answer questions and really see this as an opportunity to answer your questions and make this information meaningful to you. So as I said, this plan of work that we have here, we have a state plan of work. This is what we do as a state. When I meet with legislators and they want to know what we're doing, we talk about it in these broad categories of work that what we're doing. And then we also have our individual plans. Each of us as an educator or as a faculty member writes a plan on a year-to-year basis around what you're going to do to implement program efforts in these major categories of work that are described. So how do we do that? How do we determine what that will be? And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a picture of a logic model. And for those of you who had any courses in education, you've seen logic models and are probably familiar with those. For those who haven't been, this may look new. But a logic model has several different ways you can lay it out. This is the one we use most often here in Delaware. But this just describes what is typical in terms of development of a program. So this plan of work, we have these major topics. How do we go about putting a program together with that? And you can start at either side of a logic model. You can start with the outcomes, or you can start with the situation. But let's start in this description today with just talking about the situation. You remember I mentioned we do a needs assessment. We do that every 5 years, but we have ongoing needs assessment all the time by individual agents. In conducting that needs assessment, it helps us identify what particular situations or issues are priorities in communities that we would want to address in our major plan of work. Then we just determine that they're priorities. Does it fit into our mission mandate area? What are the values that it is? Do we have partners to work in that area? And so we consider whether it would be a priority program for us, both as a state big plan of work and an individual plan of work. This happens in both ways. Next, you look at a column that's called inputs, and that's about what we're going to invest in doing this: our time, our money, our people skills, materials, the technology, what partners we're going to add to that. So we think about, here's the situation, what resources do we have to invest in this topic? Then next is what's called the outputs section, and this is what activities do we do. So in extension, this is the workshops that we do, the fact sheets that we develop, it's the training we provide, it's the one-on-one technical assistance. It might be facilitating community conversations. It can be website development, online courses, just any kind of the variety of delivery methods that we use as both faculty and agents to provide education to the stakeholders. So what are those activities? And in each individual plan, you will write what activities you're going to do in that year around that plan. So what workshops do you plan to do? What variety trials might you be doing? Or what test demonstrations might you be doing? So you really take a time to step back and write what your plan will be. And then participation is really focused on who are we targeting as to receive these programs, and that really may vary. And there's many different kinds of participation we get, but we really encourage all of our staff to think about those who may not be reached easily and who we might need to reach by doing any kind of changing our materials through translation or special outreach to individuals who may not hear about Extension in other ways. But we want to think about who is our participants. And finally, all of this ties then into the outcomes. We also use a word called impact. And this is both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. In the short term, we can say with those that we have provided educational programs to, what knowledge have they gained? What attitudes might have been changed about a subject matter? What skills have individuals learned? And what aspirations do they have? For example, I'm going to change my behavior about eating to impact my nutrition intake. They are a plan to make a change as a result of attending an extension educational program. So that's in the short term, what we can influence. Over more time and multiple efforts, we have more of a medium-term impact, which is people actually change behavior. And if you study the change theory of individual behavior, we know people go through stages of that. But when you actually change your behavior, your practice, your decision-making, or maybe even change some policies in the environment that you're in, you are making some midterm impact in a community. And ultimately, what's the long-term outcome? This is the big picture. What do we want to happen as a result of this program that we're doing that impacts the social, economic, or environmental situation that it is in? Are we reducing, for example, we've worked for years to reduce the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that's in the soil to create a sustainable environment. And that's a long-term outcome. It doesn't happen by a single year or a single education program, even for multiple, but it takes multiple years, multiple partners, and gets us that long-term outcome. Some people will say with the logic model, you start with the outcomes. What do you want to have happen? And then you work the logic model backwards. And so for some, that really makes much more sense to say what it is we want to accomplish, and then what are we going to do to make that happen, and what resources do we need? And this is based on what situation that we're doing it for. So people have preferences. In your own individual planning, you may find that one works better for you than the other, but they are the pieces that you need to think about in terms of writing your individual plan of work. And they are the pieces that we use in writing our state plan of work. So the beauty is there is already a plan of work, a state plan of work in place. And then you as an individual have the opportunity to select which parts of the state plan of work you will work in and how you will individually do the work in that. I love that Extension has a great deal of freedom to use your creativity, use your individual skills to address the needs that have been identified in the plan of work. And many of our Extension folks really enjoy that freedom and creativity to meet people's needs. You'll see across the bottom the word evaluation. And I just want to underscore that this can happen at any part of the program planning process, whether it's needs assessment or focus groups on the situation side, or whether it's some kind of long-term analysis, longitudinal study that might go onto the long-term side. We have to be evaluating to be accountable for our funding partners that are funding us, to be able to say, what difference did your work as an agent or faculty member make in the lives of Delawareans? And how has this made a difference that's going to have long-term impact? So we look to do that. So how do we keep track of all this information? The state plan, where is it? And what do you do with that? Well, we have a logic model planning and reporting system, which is really just a piece of software that is loaded with our logic models. So as each of the teams have developed them, they are loaded into the system, and they're built upon these logic models. That's how we created them. And then it is out of this planning and reporting system that we can gather various reports and numbers and your stories of success. We love the impact stories, hearing about what has happened as a result of your program. As a matter of fact, we ask you to report monthly into the system as you're doing things. You can talk about what meetings you held, what the attendance was, so we have track of that. And then as you do evaluations, you can put that data in as well in terms of the impact that are built into the system, where you can indicate, check what indicators were touched by the work that you did. We also use this planning and reporting system for your performance appraisal, because this data feeds your supervisor information about what work you have done. Your supervisor signs off on your plan. When you do your plan, they review it and say it looks like a great plan, or they might have some suggestions for your plan. And then at the end of the year, they will do the performance review, which is saying, here was your plan. What did you do from among your plan? Have you accomplished what you planned to do? And then you reporting what the results are on a monthly basis into that plan. So it all ties together. And when you get several years in, you may be looking at a career path, which we have in our agent position, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but you can use that for your promotion portfolio. And it's also a way to designate what staff resources you need for further training to work in any particular area as you write your plan. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So we often refer to logic model planning and reporting system. We're great for acronyms in extension. So we often say LMPRS. It just stuck. It's LMPRS. So it's LMPRS. It refers to the logic model planning and reporting system. So if you're doing educational programming, we'll get you linked up for this and have some very specific training for you on this. As a new staff member, you won't be writing your plan in your first month on the job, or even maybe the second month on the job. This is something you'll develop, and generally I'd say by your 6th month in the job, we'd like you to have a plan and know what you're planning to do, but it often takes some time to get your feet in the ground. And so this is not something you do your first day or first week on the job. It's something you review and start thinking about, and as you talk to folks about what you're going to do for your plan. And then each year you'll update that plan and get better at planning as well. So finally, I'll just mention something about evaluation. I have mentioned before, but I'll just make an emphasis on this. You saw at the bottom of the logic model the importance of program evaluation. And I just want to mention, as you start your career in extension, that this is an important skill set to develop. Being able to measure the difference that you're making in your program is an important skill set, whether that's formative in terms of the needs assessment or what things you need to do for program improvement. That's one kind of evaluation. Or summative, where you're talking about what impact that you had, what were the outcomes of the work that you're doing. So I'll just mention that program evaluation is important, and we'll talk about opportunities to enhance your skills in that area, and that there's also an opportunity and requirement that in your promotion, as you go for that, you can demonstrate the evaluation that you've completed to support your accomplishment. So let me just pause here before I turn it over to Maria and just see if there's any questions at this point that I can respond to. I'm not seeing anything in the chat pod. You're either figuring it all out, or this is just something you already know all about. So, and it could be any of that as we plan that. So Maria, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about an important part of our work, which is getting stakeholder input. I'll let you talk about that.
So thank you, Michelle. Stakeholder input is an important part of our program planning process. And so one of the ways that we do that is through advisory committees. And advisory committees really help to guide what we're doing, whether it's as a team our whole program team or by program initiatives. So it may be one particular programming topic that we're working on or program initiative. But those committees can really help us better understand the needs or the issues within the community. They can then really help inform how we develop a program. And they can advise and recommend how best to reach target audiences. And really, when necessary, they can act as advocates for extension for our programs in particular, but also for the extension service and our whole organization as a whole. So they can play a really important role kind of across time, from program development to program implementation to really speaking about our programming successes. So many of our program areas have an advisory committee, or there may be a specific initiative like the 4-H after school program may have a parent group that serves then as a advisory committee to what's happening in that after school program. That's just an example. We try to make sure that our advisory committees are reflective of the population that we're trying to reach. And so it may mean then that we're asking people to serve on the committee that represents different races and ethnicities, a balance in gender, a geographic location. And so again, that depends on the program or the advisory committee that we're working on. For example, in the Family and Consumer Science Advisory Committee has men and women, folks from different races and ethnicities, and then they reside all over the state. And in that way, they're helping to advise what the whole Family and Consumer Science program team is doing. And they help to relate that information back to the populations that they work with. There may be other important characteristics of the population that you're working with that would serve on your committee. For example, they may need to be bilingual, or they may need to be youth, because we want those committees to really represent and help us define the programming that we're doing. So the last bullet here has to do with civil rights. And I know we have a new staff orientation topic area coming up in the future, specifically about civil rights. But one of the things you'll learn is that because we're getting federal funding and because it's just good, it's something that we value, being open and available to all citizens is an important cooperative extension value. So one of the things that we need to do because of funding, but also because it's a good thing to do, and we value it, is we try and keep track of who we reach based on gender and ethnicity and race, and keep track so that we can tell a story. And so one of the things that you'll find out is we have folders in our offices that help us document who we reach. One of those folders also asks us to identify the members of our advisory committees and really show and illustrate that those committee members represent, you know, a wide variety of our population and really reflect our population. So more on civil rights later, but I wanted to let you know that that's an important thing to pay attention to as you're putting together committees. And now it's back to Michelle to talk a little bit about the promotion process.
So we are very pleased that within UD Cooperative Extension, we do have a career path that you can put many years into cooperative extension and have opportunities to be promoted within the career as being a cooperative extension agent. You are hired as either an agent 1, 2, 3, or 4, or as a specialist 1, 2, or 3. And the numbers that you see underneath this are just the HR classifications, the groupings that we have within UD of what type of position that is. But what's important to know is that you have opportunities over the course of your career here, and we hope that you will have a career with Cooperative Extension, to be promoted within the ranks of being an extension agent. We have a 3-year minimum that's between each of the ranks, and that is spelled out more specifically of how many years between each of the ranks in a document that is our promotion guidelines document, available on our staff resources page of the web. And that's something you'll want to look at. That will be updated here in 2020. And so you'll want to be sure that the document you're looking at is the staff resources document on promotion for 2020. It is not up yet. The old one is currently there. But just so you know, you do have the opportunity to go through this process, and it's really about developing competencies in the areas of teaching and scholarship and being able to show evidence of impact that you're having, as well as service to the organization in terms of work with in support of the organization on committees and various leadership roles, and also in the Northeast region of the United States and even across the country. As Extension is really these land-grant universities across the country. We're part of a national network, and as such, there's opportunity to share expertise across the country. So we do have a promotion process, and the average is between 4 to 10% salary increase with the promotion process. It's done in consultation with whoever is your supervisor. You can be in conversation with them, and they serve as your coach to go through putting together a promotion portfolio that is focused on the impact of your program. So it is a peer review process. It goes through multiple layers. Everyone has the opportunity to go through promotion at the time that is supported by your supervisor. And there is an annual election of your peers representing Agent 2, Agent 3, and Agent 4 levels. From each of the program areas, and there is a peer review of a portfolio that's put together for promotion that focuses on your key educational programs. After that is reviewed by both your supervisor and by the peer review committee, that then comes to the Director of Extension for review, and then is reviewed by the college administrative team, so by the dean and then the 2 associate deans review that. And there are votes taken at each of those levels, and then a final decision is made with approval of the dean for those promotion processes. So that is the process we go through. And why we're talking about this in light of the earlier comments is this is really built on what your individual plans of work are and those yearly accomplishments that you do. So it's just to add an understanding of the importance of good planning, good implementation, and good program evaluation. Because as you do that each year, they compile, they add on. Generally, you'll be doing a program, once program topic that you'll be doing for years. And so you'll add to that in terms of the scholarship you do, or new websites, or new fact sheets, or new curriculum, or your creativity will come into play. And that will change, and you'll measure the outcome of the work that you're doing in terms of the changes in behavior that people have, the changes in knowledge, or in long term, what has been the environmental or social impact of that. And these things are what are measured and what are looked for in promotion. So we do a separate training on promotion when you're ready to do this process. We'll have a new guidebook that's up on our staff resources page for you to look at. And we'll be talking about that as you move forward through your career with your supervisor on a regular basis. Encourage everyone to go through the promotion process and be recognized as you make milestones in your career. So excited that we do have that opportunity, and this is what it looks like. Maria, do you want to go on and talk about opportunities to improve through professional development?
Yes. So I'm going to just piggyback off of what Michelle was saying. You may be feeling a little overwhelmed, but it is a process, this promotion process, you know, learning about logic models, learning about the Lamper system. And so one of the things that I really love and value about cooperative extension is that cooperative extension really values the notion of professional development. And it's almost an expectation, right, that we continue to learn as we grow in our positions. And as we grow in our positions and continue to learn, that is going to impact and improve the way we do our work. So professional development is really an important part of your program development, right? It will help bring knowledge and resources and creative thinking to how you create programming and implement programming. And so it really helps you to keep current. It helps you learn from others to innovate strategies for program delivery. And so typically we think about, oh, I have to learn more about what I was hired to do. So in my case, it was financial management or family and consumer sciences. But I really encourage people to think about increasing their knowledge base in some of these other things that I have listed here, like program development and evaluation, or how do you use different educational strategies, whether you're working with adults or youth, or how do I engage the community in a way that will help bring about some of those long-term changes that we list in our logic models. How to facilitate processes and groups, and then, you know, innovation initiatives, you know, and these are just these are topics outside of our subject matter area that I have found can really help improve and help us be creative about how do we deliver programs to really make impact. So, and I guess as a county director and as a supervisor, I really encourage people to look at what those opportunities are and then to come back and talk to me about, you know, do you think this would work? Do you think this would fit? Can we use resources to make this happen in terms of certain professional development opportunities? Because I think that that will really help guide your thinking, and as a supervisor, we kind of need to know and help you define how to help define your pathway in career in extension. And so we're good people to kind of lean on. And so that's why I'm saying talk with your program leaders and supervisors about opportunities and ideas about topics and training opportunities, especially those who've been around for a little while. They may have some really great ideas about creative ways you can get your professional development. So it does need to be part of your plan of work. And so you'll see in the plan of work process, there's a place where you can speak to maybe doing professional development or professional presentations, or even in your program planning section of your document, you can begin to articulate, this is what I want to learn more about, and help me figure out how to do this. It keeps your supervisor and program leaders in the loop so that they can help you. And then, of course, you want to document your initiatives and include them in any promotion portfolio or curriculum vitae. So I would say start a file for your own self and start putting things in the file or a spreadsheet of the kinds of professional development that you've done, and where you've done them, and if you've presented a paper or presented a poster. All of those things can really help as you put together your promotion document or your resume and vita. So one of the things I wanted to also speak to is just sort of a beginning thinking about where can you get some of those professional development opportunities. And so we have some built into our system, right? And so there's this thing called First Friday, which the first Friday of every month, of most months, there is some sort of current news topics that Michelle and others share with us to kind of keep us all in the loop and updated. There is our Delaware Cooperative Extension annual conference, and obviously that's annual, and it's actually a joint conference with UD Cooperative Extension personnel and Delaware State University Cooperative Extension personnel, and we've actually started inviting folks from Sea Grant and other units on campus who are doing outreach education into the community. The last few years, we've been doing a spring training, and that is in February. This year, it's about innovation, but the topic has changed as we as an organization have identified topics that we think, gosh, it'd be really helpful for everyone to know about and give people 2 or 3 day kind of solid topic area training in a specific topic. So as I said, in 2020, it's going to be on innovation. Certainly the University of Delaware has all sorts of employee training, and those are open to us to attend. And again, speak with your supervisor to see if it's something that might fit. Those are sort of internal kinds of things, but I also wanted to make sure that you all knew about national and regional extension conferences and also non-extension conferences and workshops. All of those count towards your professional development, and we encourage you to look for those things. And I also wanted you to know, and this is the last bullet here on this slide, that there are 6 professional associations that are affiliated with Cooperative Extension. And so they really promote the professionalism, the leadership, and kind of overall extension organization improvement at a national level. As Michelle said, there's a cooperative extension in every state. And so there are national extension conferences and organizations that offer national training, and it's a wonderful opportunity to begin to learn from the efforts of other state people who have your same kind of job. So for example, the Family and Consumer Science team has the National Extension Association of Family and Consumer Sciences. This is our national organization, and they have an annual conference every year. The 4-H program also has the National 4-H Association of Extension 4-H Agents. We have the same with the National Association of County Agricultural Agents. And so you can see we have one for the National Association of Community Development Extension Personnel, an association of the Natural Resource Extension Professionals, and then lastly, the National Association of Extension Program and Staff Development Professionals. So there's 6 that are associated with kind of a professional topic area, for lack of a better word. And then we have one called Epsilon Sigma Phi, which is a national organization that's really all about leadership. And it's really about trying to support the organization as a whole, the leaders within an organization as a whole, and supporting cooperative extension as a whole. And so I really would encourage you to get involved. Many of these organizations, we have what we call a state affiliate. So there are members in the FCS, the Family Consumer Science, the 4-H, Epsilon Sigma Phi, and the County Agricultural Agents. I know that we have affiliate associations for each of those national organizations. So for more information about that, you can talk with your supervisor about how you might get involved with these organizations at the state level and at the national level. One of the things these organizations also kind of provide is the opportunity for awards, the opportunity to present at a national and or regional conference, and all of those things support your promotion and development of your career within cooperative extension. So it's a great a resource and career supporter, and so I really encourage people to get involved with that early on in their career. And so I'll stop here and just ask if there's any questions about this professional development piece that people might have. Okay, so hearing none, I will move on. So one of the other topics is just this idea of informal mentors. And so, you know, mentoring is that informal relationship that can be established between someone who's new with someone who may be a more experienced and knowledgeable employee. And so through an informal kind of relationship, that more experienced person can kind of help guide and mentor someone who might be new in a different way than a supervisor does. And so we really encourage people to kind of think about after they've been here for a few months, who might be a good mentor for you, and maybe reach out to them and ask them if they would be willing to work with you and just be available to ask questions or help you figure out what all these acronyms mean or help you figure out how you might approach a certain program initiative. But you can also ask your supervisor for recommendations. I think you'll learn that cooperative extension personnel in Delaware are very friendly. We tend to think of ourselves as kind of a family, or very supportive of one another. And so we hope that you'll find that you'll have lots of mentors depending on what needs you might have in terms of trying to get your questions answered. So reach out to your supervisor, or just, you know, someone that you meet in your program area who can help assist you and guide you. And so lastly, this is just a piece that really talks to or speaks to some of the real tangible things that we kind of need when we arrive on a job. And we wanted to be sure that that you know that upon arrival, your supervisor or your home office unit may be the ones to sort of answer questions about or make sure that you have access to some of these resources. And so clearly information about your office location, your desk, your nameplate, your computer needs, parking, cell phone, those kinds of things. You can be talking to your supervisor about that. Things that are administrative related, like, you know, who is their support staff person in the office, information about some of the financial things like expense reports and credit cards, getting an email address. All of the things in that kind of middle column are things that you can talk with your supervisor about. They may connect you with the administrative person in your office that will help you kind of really do that, really get connected. But these are the kinds of things that you should get from those resources in your office or your supervisor. And then one of the other things here is over here on the once a year side. As I mentioned, we have the annual conference. We get an updated UD DSU phone list of cooperative extension professionals. This comes out of Michelle's office. And then also twice a year, we do some apparel ordering. And that again comes out of Michelle's office. And I think we just finished that up, but we'll be getting ready again before Ag Day, I think, for another order. So that'll be sometime this spring. So hopefully that answers some of the questions about who do I go to for what, and you'll know who to connect with. But certainly your supervisor can help you sort through some of this. So if you have any questions about that, please type that into the chat. And then I think I turn it back over to Michelle for what's coming next.
Thank you, Maria. And thanks for your comments that really help bring this to light and understanding. We really do see ourselves as a family, as Maria said, and we really do care about each other and making sure you're getting off to a great start. And so we're doing something new for us. We're having some multiple sessions here that we hope will touch on topics that you're interested in and that you have need of. We're going to have another session on human resources and communication, and some of the subtopics that are there will be planned, and you have the date for that. We're also going to be doing some things that you'll be contacted around the planning and reporting system, and make sure you have a firm understanding of how to do that with hands-on experience. And we'll also be talking about civil rights and affirmative action, making clear what our values and our goals and our commitments are around doing that work. So I'm grateful for this time with you today. And for Maria's assistance in doing this and pulling together what I hope is a good introduction to our organizational structure and design. And are there any questions at this point in time? Well, please know that every question is a good one, and you can speak to your supervisor and your individual supervisor or to any one of us today, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. And we are a complex organization. You aren't going to know us all at once. We hope this was a nice introduction to who we are, and it'll help you get started. And through the rest of these sessions, you'll feel at home in the family we call Cooperative Extension. Thanks for tuning in today.